Cool. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our panel titled Evolving Communities from A MAZE Johannesburg to Playtopia. And in short, it's a panel that's discussing how A MAZE Johannesburg influenced the growth of alternative games in communities in South Africa and the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, and planted the seeds for what would now become known as Playtopia Make Games Africa. My name is Anja. I am a sort of nascent Playtopia helper, and I help Crystal coordinate the volunteer program. I've been a participant in all of them, as well as a very, very big fan of A MAZE. Yeah, and I'm just going to introduce everyone that I'll be asking questions to for the next hour. And we're going to start with Sithe. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, Anja. So I'm Sithe. I'm from Zambia, but I lived and study in South Africa. I've done a lot of things involving game development. I've been around in the community, like locally, like in Zambia. I started a game development community in 2013. But the most recent thing I've done is start an initiative to document 1,000 African women and their contributions to games. And in between that, I've done stuff like a Global Game Jam regional organizer right now. And what else have I done? I also did some program management and assistance for 2 of the Amaze festivals. And yeah, generally, I just love games in Africa. That's me.
Amazing. Cool. Next up, we have Ben. Okay. Next up, we have Ben. Okay, fantastic. Next up, we have Ben.
Hi, my name is Ben Rausch. I am the program director for the Playtopia Festival for Playtopia MGA. I'm also involved in Super Friendship Arcade and have been helping out with doing pop-up arcades and jams and events with SFA since 2014. And I also make my own games with the game band Team Laserbeam. And I'm very stoked to be here.
Amazing. Thanks, Ben. The next up, we have Crystal.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Anja. My name's Crystal Farmer, and I've spent a few years doing my master's research in social anthropology, studying video game developers. So I came in as a non-game knower, a non-game player, non-game maker, and I was mostly interested in the building of communities and how the game dev community was built. And naturally, I became sort of absorbed into the community as a non-game maker, interestingly. But I'm sort of in the same camp as Anja. I don't really make games, but I do get involved with Super Friendship Arcade. I am a pro at making decor from all sorts of garbage to make it beautiful. I'd say that the Playtopia volunteer program is really my baby, and just getting as many people involved in whatever capacity they can. That's what I'm most fond of. I work in the e-learning industry, but my heart is in the game community. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Crystal. And then lastly, we have Evan.
Hi there, my name is Evan Greenwood. I am the founder and director of Free Lives, which is a commercial games company based in Cape Town, South Africa. We're probably the most commercially successful South African game studio. But what really excites me about the company is we do a lot of weird stuff. And also we've gotten quite strongly involved in trying to build a community here, trying to get people together. When A MAZE was pulling out of South Africa a couple of years back, we helped get a team together and put a little bit of money into making Playtopia happen. And yeah, I'm a game designer by trade and have a little bit of a fine arts background, and I'm really excited about that sort of space.
Awesome. So I think it was really strange when Ben was chatting about putting this panel together, because I feel like there's such a massive team of people who are part of the sort of the Amaze legacy and the sort of the current Playtopia regulars. But we sort of, I guess, chose people that come from a variety of sort of sectors of the festival. So Crystal being very involved with the volunteers program, Ben being one of the organizers, Sithe just being the sort of the cornerstone of the community in a lot of ways with Proserium, and always speaking at all of these events and being really a champion for women in games and African women in games. And then Evan, who has wholeheartedly supported the growth of the community. So I think everyone has really valuable things to contribute to this conversation. And I have 4 questions that are going to guide our conversation today. Firstly, I wanted to find out, and we're going back quite a few years now, I'm trying to think, when was the first A MAZE Johannesburg festival? In 2013? 2014?
2012.
2012. Okay, so we're going back all the way to the start, and I want to find out from everyone, how did you come to know about and then participate in A MAZE Johannesburg? Starting with Crystal.
Well, I first found out about games when I went to the Broforce launch, and I was like, wow, what is this? I need to know more about what's going on here. And the first person I spoke to said, look up A MAZE, go Google A MAZE, and I Googled it. I met Ben Myers at a game event, electronic games convention in Cape Town, and he said, come to A MAZE, you'll really love it. So I realized it was kind of a thing. And then the first time I attended, I did a talk on what I'd learned through my research and all the people I met and all the observations. And that was, I think, the most recent Joburg Playtopia event that I went to.
Awesome. And then Evan, you go all the way back to the beginning, right? When was your first Amaze festival?
So my first Amaze festival was Johannesburg 2012. They had at that point been a Berlin festival before that. Thorsten I think he came down and visited the Johannesburg community. So I was in Cape Town, and he was reaching out. Like, he really just kind of came and said, hey, let's do this, and got people excited. And over the course of some months, people started writing blog posts and writing forum posts and emailing each other and trying to find out, like, what even is A MAZE? It seems cool. Should we go up to Johannesburg? So I was there the first time, and I got actually really excited about it. It was very much the kind of space that I wanted to show my games often, that I wanted, where I felt, and it was true, it attracted all these incredible people, because it wasn't, I think, this kind of, I guess, all about the money, all about like just how to sell games. This was about how to make amazing things. So I was there early on, but it really was like Thorsten just reaching out and kind of taking a shot in the dark with South Africa.
Amazing, yeah. And Sithe, what was your introduction to the Amaze cult?
So I went to GDC 2016. I was trying to remember the year in my head. And that's when Thorsten contacted me on Facebook, and he was like, "Oh, I'm here. We should meet up." I didn't really know what Thorsten did. I just, like, I could see the Amaze stuff, but I didn't know what Amaze was. Amaze is like, and I was like I saw the magazine. I saw so much crazy stuff. And then he was like, "We have Amaze Johannesburg. Let's meet up and talk about it." So I met Thorsten at GDC 16, and he was like, "Oh, you should totally come and speak at this event." And he was like, "It's really different from GDC." It was like, it's a lot less corporate and more fun and what. And then he was just talking about a lot of the fun stuff that happens there. And I mean, I believed him because I saw his finger tattoos, and I was like, yeah, he looks like if he runs something, it would be fun. But I didn't realize like how fun, but like also what can I say? Like eye-opening, sort of. Like it opened me up to a whole different perspective of games, and I couldn't believe that this was like something that was happening in Africa, especially Johannesburg, because Johannesburg is pretty accessible. Like if you look at places around the continent that are accessible to most people, Johannesburg is quite accessible. There are direct flights to Johannesburg from most African countries, and I was like, this is like a flight away from Lusaka. It's like crazy that this thing is happening, and so I just thought like, wow, like I think this is the type of this friendly, fun, diverse community is something that I think more people should be involved in around the continent. And yeah, I forgot, but I was just like feeling a lot of things when I first went to A MAZE in 2016. It was crazy, crazy. Yeah, and but my favorite part about it, seriously, my favorite part about A MAZE is is how they how seeing African culture in a more punk kind of vibe. Yeah, like with the performances and the showcases besides the game, even outside the games, just seeing all that stuff, it has it's like the place where you can see like an Afrofuturistic vibe develop for games. Yeah, so that's my experience with A MAZE.
Okay, awesome. And then lastly, Ben, do you want to tell us about your induction into the A MAZE cult, A MAZE Johannesburg cult?
Yeah, so my first exposure to the idea of A MAZE was I used to DJ at a venue in Johannesburg at the time called Kitchener's Carvery, which was like kind of a weird dive bar that a group of us had just kind of like overrun and were throwing regular parties in, and met this kind of crazy German guy outside and had a really great conversation with him. And this turned out to be Torsten, and he's like, I want to come back here and do a games festival. And I was like, wow, that's fantastic. I love games. And I'm really excited about like the potential for games as like art and stuff. And he's like, you don't understand. You don't understand. I'm like, no. Like, I totally get it. I like weird games. And I'm like, you know, like very excited about stuff that kind of breaks the mold. And Torsten's like, no. You don't know about my games. And I was like, okay. And I very ashamedly missed out on the festival on 2012 and 2013 while I was living in Johannesburg, and then moved down to Cape Town and got immersed in the community of people making games on this side of the world. And went to my first Super Friendship Arcade and just totally had my mind blown, and then immediately got very involved in that. And at the first SFA Jam, made a game called Kick in the Door, which was a multiplayer game that used foot switches as the like primary control system. And after making that, my collaborator Raxter was like, well, now we have to take this to A MAZE. I was like, oh, cool, yeah, A MAZE, right, that sounds perfect. So got into A MAZE and got there and like had my mind completely blown. And I was like, okay, Torsten was right. I didn't understand. I didn't get it, because it really is just like such a different universe of the whole practice of like the agenda. Most of the kind of games that A MAZE champions is just so far removed from anything I've been exposed to. So drank the Kool-Aid like pretty quick then. And by the following A MAZE was doing a talk and showing off a game, and we were doing an SFA event, and I was playing DJing one of the after parties. So I very quickly immersed myself in, you know, wanting to be a part of this cool thing that was out there. And as Sithe said, like the biggest thing as well was that it was happening in Johannesburg, and that you know, Joburg was really a place where the spirit of the city could also influence this event in such a cool way.
Awesome. Yeah, I think what all of you are sort of touching on with what the sort of the significance of A MAZE in terms of our, I guess, local game community is that it's sort of, for me at least, I felt like it exposed myself and Ben to like a community of people who were making games and just not taking it like AAA seriously. Like you could make a game about, I don't know, like some kind of frog jumping between buildings in, you know, violent purple with, you know, like shooting lasers out of their eyes or something. And that was just as valid as some, you know, people in like crazy armor fighting some sort of medieval war. And it was just amazing that other people were into it too, right? And Sithe, like you mentioned, this sort of this breeding ground for an Afrofuturist, sort of Afrofuturism in games locally. Yeah, A MAZE just really was a sort of a seeding bed for those kinds of things. So my next question is about how you all see A MAZE Johannesburg's legacy having influenced game communities in sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay, thank you. And I'm really happy it came together and that Playtopia turned out so excellent. And thank you all of you for being a part of that. What happened was that A MAZE is a huge production to put on. Traveling across into a new continent to do it is a huge amount of work, and understandably, this took a toll on Thorsten. He might say it differently, but it was really hard to do it, and funding would come through at the last minute, that kind of thing. So in I think 2016 or 20 no, what I'm saying in 2018, is that right? There's a chance that A MAZE is going to move to Cape Town, and then there's this whole extra organizational burden on that. And Thorsten decides that actually he's been doing so much, he needs to take a break. At which point we felt that this A MAZE is just so good, we couldn't go without a whole year of kind of attracting the South African game community and the South African like art space together and just miss out on that for a year. So we thought we're going to throw our own festival. And what was also excellent there is Thorsten was still keen to be involved, just in a smaller capacity, and he came down and he brought artists with him, and he brought a lot of that spirit. But then Playtopia also took on this life of its own, where South African curators are deciding who DJs and deciding what shows to put up and what games to show, and getting interactive artists involved and speakers and all of that. And it turned out fantastically well. And I think it's very much this continuation of the people that were already excited about A MAZE and saw value there and wanted more of that, and couldn't go a whole year without having an A MAZE. So Playtopia had to happen.
Okay, great. Next up, Ben, how do you think the legacy has influenced gaming communities, and not just necessarily Playtopia, but sort
of I think, like, from my perspective, I think you can definitely see a lot of great positive influence that having A MAZE Johannesburg has had, you know, on broader other local communities. I know, as I say, I wasn't around for the early A MAZEs in Joburg, but when Peter and Richard got the inspiration for doing Super Friendship Arcade, that was sitting in an A MAZE talk and being like, hey, we need to do something like this in Cape Town. We need to bring some of this like playful spirit into our city and try to build more of the kind of community that we want to be a part of. So Super Friendship Arcade in February 2014 did the first event in like indoor skate park in a like old parking garage, like for me, seeing that, just how cool the whole thing was like this immediate like, oh my gosh, this is just insane, like, you know, projecting on the like ramps and people playing inside the pits and stuff. It was super cool. And then receiving like a response from people of being like, get involved, like join us, like come through to our jams and tell other people about this. It's had such an incredibly positive impact on me personally, like literally changed the trajectory of my life to be able to get involved in a community that was supportive of me having no experience in a field at all, and really being this total outsider, but being so welcomed. So like I then myself personally felt like I had to continue paying that back, and like in any interaction that I would have with people, trying to kind of push that same sense of welcoming and encouragement. And I think that's something that definitely in part came from the influence from A MAZE in the first place. That sense of saying games are for everyone. They're not just for people who, you know, studied computer science or did this or jumped through certain hoops to allow them to step into the space, but really to just say like, hey, this is a space that's here to celebrate and encourage work from people outside of your typical, you know, game developer circles. And yeah, as I say, that like heavily influenced Super Friendship Arcade, and Super Friendship Arcade in its own way also had a huge influence on what Playtopia landed up being. In a big way, it kind of is a Super Friendship Arcade festival in that like both of the exhibition spaces are pretty much hanging together because the SFA gang is going around making sure things are working and wrapping lights around things and sticking cardboard robots on the monitors. And you know, the whole spirit of the space is heavily influenced by Super Friendship Arcade, which in itself is so heavily influenced by A MAZE. And as Evan says, having Torsten at the first Playtopia also really helped set a tone and cement that that shared like sort of you know, we're kindred spirits and we're trying to do cool stuff like this together, and yeah, really just kind of backing each other up and pushing each other to keep doing cooler and cooler stuff.
Cool. Then Crystal, who is the social anthropologist in our midst, how do you, from an academic perspective, see the influence of A MAZE on gaming communities in sub-Saharan Africa?
Well, I think a word that I heard it used a lot was evangelizing, and trying to spread the word that, you know, making games is a thing and anyone can really do it. And for me, like A MAZE was almost like the giant big church event that everyone goes to. You know, it adds pacing to the year so that if you want to make something or if you want to do something, you work towards that event. So it's almost solidifies the community a little bit, or it formalizes one little aspect so that you work on, you have a little idea and you think, oh, maybe I should do something with it. And then you think, oh, maybe I'll save it for A MAZE. So it kind of gives you a reason to do something, or a reason to look forward to, or a reason to, I don't know, if you live in Joburg and you desperately want to meet Evan, you know, that will be your moment to do that thing. So I think, yeah, it really adds that, the moments of coming together. I think the physical space is really important, because a big part of it for me was the I can do it factor. You know, that's the thing I can do. You know, you see these games, you see that they're not like, you know, these really intense first-person shooters, and then, you know, you kind of think I can do that, but not just I can do it because of the way the game's made or the way it looks, but because of how welcoming everyone is. I nearly fell off my chair when Ben Myers asked me to do a talk at A MAZE. I was like, but me? He doesn't even know me. But just, it feels like everybody gets a chance to have a go. And I think that's really the important thing. That's the spirit of A MAZE that also carries through to the spirit of Playtopia, is that have a go. You made a really cool thing at Super Friendship Arcade, take it to A MAZE. And yeah, so I think that is a really big part of building the community. So seeing the game, but then seeing the person who made it, and for the creator of the game to see people playing their own games, that's also a really important part of just the experience of, you know, of your craft, of making something and then seeing the person seeing someone play it, but then also playing it and seeing the person who makes it. I think that just adds a whole human aspect and adds to the I can do it factor of Playtopia. And for people who don't consider themselves as part of the community, going to A MAZE makes you meet people, and then you kind of realize, oh, this community exists, I'm part of it. And for people who are already kind of part of the community, it's a time to be around the people who are in the community with you also. So I think the physical space of something that's inherently virtual, I mean, we're kind of virtual now, and everyone watching is virtual. and it just adds the human face, my lips moving, to something that is normally pixels moving. And I think that's really exciting, and that's really an important part of building community, the spatial aspects of it.
Thank you, Crystal. Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to add anything to the spatial aspect of A MAZE. Otherwise, we'll just, yes, Evan.
I just say I really agree with Crystal. I've found A MAZE and Playtopia incredibly inspiring. It's an opportunity to meet people and show off a thing that you've made. And I know that's like like showing off could be this egotistical thing, but at the same time, like being inspired to build the best thing you can, because at the end of it, there's someone there that's going to be right next to you and is going to hopefully have a good time and, give you a hug, high five you. You're going to be physically there. It makes a huge difference. And it's different to watching a YouTuber play your game, or reading an email of someone who you sent your game to in Johannesburg. People would come together that have this focus point and this chance to make this thing, and then be this outpouring of new culture being created for this event. And a lot of it was just for the event. A lot of what happens at Playtopia is just at Playtopia. You won't see it anywhere else, which is exciting, I think, for spectators as well.
Yeah, that's very true. That it also, it's not just the people who participate in the community, but also anyone who might be interested. It's like that one step closer to being able to participate. Sithe, do you want to chat a bit about how you think A MAZE Johannesburg has had an influence on game communities? I know you're involved in Zambia and in South Africa, so I don't know if there's different ways that you see that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of it is about what I would summarize as the freedom and openness it adds to the game development community, because A MAZE is really welcoming. Well, compared to the game development, compared to just what you would kind of expect, from hanging around game developers and all that. Yeah, and as Crystal said, it it's not like you don't have to have made a game. You don't have to have made a game to be a part of the community. There's so many people who are part of the community, and regulars at A MAZE, that they might not have been accepted, they might not even have been as included in other spaces. That's the thing which I see as really big, especially if you're just starting, if you have an interest in games, if you just have an interest in games, whether it's just starting out and you want it to be your career path, or whether you just want to get involved out of curiosity. There isn't a space where you can really physically meet people for that. I guess maybe things like Global Game Jam. I think that's where I first met with other people, and we kind of shared stuff which we made, which you probably wouldn't share anywhere else, because it's like a really small game which you made in 2 days, and you're like, yeah, you don't know what to do. You wouldn't really feel so proud of it. But then when you go to A MAZE, and then you see a lot of the things which people have done, a lot of they're really small but soulful and heartful games, and you realize that you even someone who's outside of game development, if you just have an idea, there is a space where you can put that. So yeah, that's the main legacy which I think A MAZE Johannesburg adds to the community. I mean, I know a lot of people who are outside of game development, or who are outside of the A MAZE community, who are outside the independent game development community, but have an interest in game development, right? And they work hard, but they align themselves with the interests of what maybe they see big corporations doing. They align themselves with oh, I need to do this. I need to if I want to be like this AAA studio or this studio that made this, like they try to go that way. But I'm like, no. But I really think like, especially in Africa, people need to have the freedom to explore their own path to what game development, what success in game development can be, because we can't like, there are a lot of reasons. There are many reasons why we can't achieve, or why we can't like have a success in a similar light as there was like resources and all that. There's so many reasons why, but you can still define success in game development in a different way. And I think having the freedom to explore that, like it feels so validating when you go to a maze and like, you know, even when I first gave my talk, I was like, I didn't know what I was talking about was important. I didn't know that it was important. And that's actually the place where it made me realize that, wow, like this is actually important stuff. And this is stuff that can actually contribute to what we see game development as on the continent. So yeah, that's the legacy I think A MAZE Johannesburg has left for me personally and the rest of the African community.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I think there is this, yeah, that's sort of just the atmosphere, the sort of je ne sais quoi of the A MAZE event that sort of percolated in all of our hearts and the events that we've been having around South Africa. And I think it's a very welcoming community, and we'll get a little bit more into how it can be, I guess, not always such a welcoming community a bit later in this chat. I've been asked to introduce some pictures. So these, maybe Ben wants to introduce what these pictures are about. Sure.
These pictures are just some pictures from Playtopia last year, but I thought it might be nice for anyone that's, you know, any A MAZE attendees that are that haven't been able to be to Playtopia, but to kind of see what's been happening here in Cape Town. So I didn't want to derail the conversation. I was just like, oh, check out some nice stuff. So I think people can kind of get a sense of it as well. We haven't really discussed that too much, but it's set in an old colonial, like, it's called the castle. It's more like a fort, but like a space that has a pretty, not pretty, a clearly uncool colonial sort of history, and that has also become quite an integral sort of part of the vibe of the festival, is being able to take over a space like this and you know, fully reclaim it and do a bunch of cool subversive stuff in this space with this strange history. But I mean, yeah, that's what I have to say about these pictures. They're also, it's representative of the efforts of like a huge group of different contributing, you know, installation artists, game developers, you know, makers and thinkers of all different kinds that have kind of come together to show off what we're running through. But I'll just leave this going in the background while we chat about other things.
Yeah, I was going to say this is really good to have in the background while we talk about the next question, which is that I want to ask you all to tell me a little bit about your experiences of Playtopia and how you feel Playtopia is a continuation of A MAZE, and then what makes it sort of something that's new and quite different. And yeah, Ben, you can kick us off.
So yeah, I mean, it's obviously difficult for me to talk about my experience because it's from my side, being so involved in helping to put things together, you know, a very different experience to what someone else might have coming in from an outside perspective. But for me, it's obviously been incredibly rewarding. Been able to work with a lot of great people. It's been, you know, like particularly with the first year that the festival ran, just the resource in terms of time was incredibly limited. I want to say like in June or July, we didn't even have a name for the festival. We were still kind of, you know, up until that point planning to be helping out with A MAZE Cape Town. And then once it became clear that wasn't happening, we had to scramble really quickly to try piece this thing together. Yeah, I was very honored to be able to be a part of this and to be working with such rad people. We should definitely mention our festival director, Dominique Gavlovsky, who was my DJ manager in another life. and just one of the most competent, like together real people I've ever met. So in the early days of planning out A MAZE Johannesburg, there was also talk about needing someone that would be able to like really make things happen. And I was like, we should get Dom because Dom rules. And I knew at that time she just ended a stint running a nightclub in Cape Town. And yeah, the stars aligned that, you know, we could have like Dom involved. Obviously having the support of Free Lives was just really huge. And I think that's also something that, you know, Free Lives contributed a lot to A MAZE Johannesburg being as amazing as it was as well. And so, yeah, it was very cool that that was also a continuation in that way, to have Free Lives backing Playtopia up, and yeah, just generally the like sort of communal spirit of people pulling things together. It was really a huge group effort. I think also particularly the volunteer program that that Crystal and Nana helped to put together really became like an integral like core of the festival, and hopefully a big part of the community going forward. That's going to you know, become you know, the next generation of people making and doing things with this festival. I'm sure are going to be a lot of the people that we're helping out with the volunteer program. So yeah, it's been really great. It's obviously also frustrating at times, the limitations that we have and the you know, sort of systemic problems that exist that cause games to call for an event like this. We're fighting against like the most evil shit in the world, and you know, going up against you know, the legacy of racism in South Africa, the you know, pretty much criminal like lack of governance that people have had over recent years, that's causing so many people to suffer and is creating like such a you know, unjust, unequal society. It's very challenging trying to do something like this at times, and feel like we can make a difference, that we'll be able to do something that will really help people, because you're going up against really like pretty monstrous evil shit that needs to change in the outside world, like to truly democratize games and to truly, you know, start decolonizing games. But yeah, it's cool to be able to feel like we're part of the start of something, and that there's so many good people involved in helping make this happen. Did that answer your question? I don't know if it's just rambling about.
Thank you very much, Ben. Sithe, I want to hear a bit about your experiences of Playtopia and how you feel it's a continuation of A MAZE, and how you feel it's something new or different.
It's a bit hard for me to say exactly, because it's I was pretty recent in terms of A MAZE. I only went to 2 A MAZE Johannesburgs and then Playtopia. So for me, it felt like I was meeting the same people. I guess the same thing, a lot of the same people, but in a different space. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, in a different place. So it felt alike in that sense, and even the vibe felt alike. But the difference, I can speak more about the differences, because the similarities are just like so a bit too ingrained in me, and I can't even like really pick them out. But I can speak about the differences. So what felt different was, well, first of all, Cape Town is a super, well, feels way super Western, like Western white, super kind of stuff. Like even being in the city, like when I was at A MAZE Johannesburg, the people who I would meet outside the festival, I would talk to art. Like there was a time I was just sitting having breakfast outside the banister. In fact, it happened more than once. And I met with like artists from Joburg who had nothing to do with A MAZE, and learned about their art, learn about the kind of art which they're doing. And something which I've always liked about South Africa, as someone from Zambia, is that South Africans take their art so seriously. Like there's pride in art and culture, and the combination of the two, especially visual art and culture. So like when I'm meeting people who are, I think you mentioned, Ben said, like the heart of the city for Johannesburg. Like I could really feel that in Joburg, and I really felt the spirit of people like pushing, the people like pushing to have themselves be a part of the history of art. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to say it properly, but like you can really feel that in Joburg. But then in Cape Town, it wasn't like that. I miss that. I really miss that. And I think another thing, like even when we heard that there wasn't going to be a maze, or a maze was moving to Cape Town, when we heard that, a lot of people were worried about that. Because like Cape Town is the most unequal city. It's right? Wait, am I right about that? Cape Town is the most unequal city in South Africa. Yeah, so they were like,
our Gini coefficient is like, among the lowest in the world. That's the difference between the richest and the poorest. Just sidebar. Anyway,
yeah,
so
thank you yeah, thank you for the facts. But yeah, it is the most unequal city, and you unfortunately do feel that, like, or you unfortunately feel a bit of that. Sorry, that possibly might be me with the background noise. I don't know, but you unfortunately do feel the inequality, and you wish that more people could be involved. And yeah, that's the part which is sad. But the thing about it being new, having new management, I guess, and it being like more where the actual game development community in South Africa is, like there are a lot of indie devs in Cape Town. So I think like being close to studios and being close to where a lot of things happen, I think that's a cool part. Like, yeah, and I think hopefully in the future, or actually no, that will be for the next question. But yeah, so that's how I feel it's different from Joburg.
Thank you, Sithe. Evan, do you want to jump in and tell us a bit about how you think, or your just experiences of Playtopia? Sorry, I'm falling over my words. And then how you feel it's sort of a continuation of A Maze, and what makes it a whole new kettle of fish. Is that the expression?
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot to add there. I think what's being said is very true. The place, the city that the event's happening in really changes the experience of it. Like me going to Joburg is very different to me experiencing this in Cape Town. And I've also been fortunate enough to experience A Maze in Berlin, and they're all quite different. And it really is the people who make that difference. It's the conversations you're having. It's who you're meeting. It's who's there. And I think there's excellent people that have been at all of these events, but they are different. And Joburg for me does feel very different to Cape Town. I think also what I would say about just in general the festival itself is that I think A Maze and Playtopia very much share the same idea and goals, but are being put together with different resources by different people. That the teams are different, the games are different, and it ends up being quite a different festival, quite a different showcase. Different talent on display, arranged differently with different emphasis. And I think what is great about all of these festivals is that it really is about provoking play and curiosity. So every time you go to one, it feels like this new thing with new kind of magical like artworks and experiences like in store. And I've had that feeling, at every A Maze, at every Playtopia so far, and that's why they always excite me, and that's why I always come back. And I think that's also what's there for other people who come and visit.
Thank you so much, Evan. Okay, great. And then our last question, which is the thorny one, and I think that everyone started kind of Oh wait, no, I haven't had a chance to ask the previous question to Crystal. Sorry, Crystal, I totally skipped over you. Can you tell us a bit about your experiences of Playtopia and how it's different and how it's a continuation of A MAZE?
Thanks, Anja. To continue what Sithe mentioned about the difference between Cape Town and Joburg, I also had quite a visceral sense of the differences between those two places. The first time when I attended A MAZE Johannesburg was the first time I'd ever been in Johannesburg on my own without my parents, and it was quite a terrifying experience for me. At that time there was a lot of conflict between metered taxis and Uber drivers. I didn't know how I'd get around, and in the end it was brilliant. The section of the city that we were in was really cosmopolitan. There was so much art. The people were so cool. Joburg people just seemed so much cooler, but a different kind of cool to Cape Town people, but not in a way that made me feel uncool, which is it's difficult to strike that balance. When we came to Cape Town, we speak about the inequality in Cape Town, but trying to build a community in a place that's already unequal, and having the people who are building that community being already not very representative is already quite a difficult feat. And the game industry is so new in South Africa that we have to build everything. From Ben and Evan, the first A MAZE, that is kind of where the community had to start. So there wasn't anyone who could tell us how to do it. Our parents didn't do it before us. Our teachers at university even couldn't tell us, how to go about it. So we desperately needed this community, and we were hungry for more people like us. And I found in A MAZE and Playtopia just a way to see things that I was going through being articulated through the medium of games and installations and music and sound. And I think the intention to be inclusive is there, 100%. And that just brings us back to the spatial issue again, which is trying to get to the castle isn't an easy thing to do. It's a fortress. The parking is kind of scary. You have to use public transport. On weekends, the public transport isn't as reliable. And Anja and I saw the volunteer program as our in for getting more people involved, people who wouldn't normally be there, people whose friends aren't part of the community, who don't have friends that are there already. So it's kind of difficult to spread the word outside of your own, of what you know. So the volunteer program was brilliant for that. The first year we realized, it's difficult for students to get to us, and it's difficult for people to scrape enough money together for transport there, for airtime for their mobile phones, so we can communicate with each other. And Anja and I really pushed for the second year of Playtopia to actually get sponsors in. So we had food sorted out. We ate really nice food. We all had enough mobile data to chat to each other during the event. We had people sleeping all over the show. We had transport sorted out. And so I think for me, what makes Playtopia is the volunteer program. And now all the volunteers have friends for whom they are now that friend who's in. And we'll get those people next time.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think, and we'll get to this question, the thorny question next up, which is, how would you like to see the game scene going forwards? And what are the current issues? And how do you see these sort of issues in the scene improving? And I think, for Crystal and I, the volunteer program, working in education for both of us, we see these, young people who are into kind of geek communities and are into nerd communities, but there's this automatic kind of shame that a lot of people experience at not having the resources to participate. So they don't even try. It's like, I'm not going to ask someone to give me money for a lift, or I'm not going to try and pitch up at a game jam because I know I don't have my laptop isn't fast enough, and those like little things that just disappear because no one ever brings it up, because they don't want to feel inferior in any environment. Those were the things that we just wanted to nip in the bud. And it's like, anyone can do this. We'll pay for you to be here. We'll make sure you're fed. We'll make sure you have data, and we'll make sure that you can get it home at night. And that was especially important for our female volunteers. We wanted everyone to feel as safe as possible. or women generally, sorry, I shouldn't say female. But yeah, that everyone would feel that they were included. And I want to hear from the rest of you, starting with Sithe, how you feel the community, what's wrong at the moment. And I think there's a lot to discuss, and how you see us improving this in future.
All right. So first, let me start with something good. With what Crystal mentioned about the volunteers are great, and they are representative of the people in South Africa. And I made friends with some of the volunteers before. Like, they're really cool people. Like, if you ever at Playtopia, make sure you talk to the volunteers. Like, they're really cool people. Yeah. So issues with Playtopia or the community. What is it? What's the? It's actually it would be a long discussion. It would be a long discussion. What are the current issues, and how do I see the scene improving? So let's just say, like, when things happen in South Africa, when games industry events happen in South Africa, it's not very. For example, Africa Games Week. Africa Games Week is happening in South Africa, but you don't really get the sense of the rest of Africa from the event. That's off the top of my head, that's the biggest issue with that. It doesn't have to be, and it's a difficult thing to, like, it's a difficult thing for me to explain, because I'm totally aware of the fact that South Africa is a lot different from other African countries, because I think when people learn about history and geography in South Africa, they don't really learn about the rest of Africa. But in the rest of Africa, like, there is a sense of, if you travel to other countries, you automatically know about people's history in that country and people's geography in that country. So for that, if you go to other African-focused events in other places, or organized by people outside South Africa, it's very easy to incorporate that stuff, because, like, we're very used to having cultural days and all that and exchanging culture. But it's not something which is, like, immediately within the view of a lot of South Africans, and it's more of yeah. I don't even know how to address that, but I guess, like, maybe if knowing whether there is an intention for it to be, is the community, is Playtopia intended to be a community for the rest of Sub-Saharan Africa? If it is, then I think there is definitely space to include other people from Sub-Saharan Africa. And I mean, if it's not, I think it's fine if it's not, but it's just like, people, as Playtopia grows, people will probably be more critical of that if it doesn't change. Like, if people will be more critical of, if you're saying it's a game development event or game focused event for Africans, but a lot of things do not represent other Africans, or other Africans don't feel comfortable at the event, then people will be critical about that in the future. So I guess figuring out, like, are we or are we not a part of, like, representing African game development culture, or is this just like South African game development culture with some additional other African pools? I don't know the answer to that, but for me, like, that's, like, just off the top of my head, and it's something which I can speak to. Yeah, but I'll let other people address the other issues. Yeah, that's what I can speak of. That's what I can speak of, and that's it. Sorry.
Thank you so much. I see we've got our 5-minute call, so each person has 1 minute. I thought we would have longer time to talk about the thorny issues. This feels like a cop-out. But Evan, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you envisage a better, brighter future for Playtopia?
Okay, in 1 minute.
In 1 minute.
So I think Sithe is 100% correct, and I think it's something we can do better. It's obviously hard because it's I'm not the curator of Playtopia, but, you know, if we can find a way to put money towards getting people down, getting them able to just be in South Africa, because Africa is obviously huge. It's not necessarily cheap getting people from all over Africa, but I think it's a thing that would excite me, certainly, and I think it would be. I think it can be done. And I think it is the intention. It's just it's proven too difficult so far. I think, and just another big thing that I think I'd like to see going forward is a lot to do with what Anja and Crystal are doing, finding those young people and giving them the opportunity to find a way into participating in games. We've also got people now that are far better representative of South Africa at universities studying games, and a thing that kind of keeps me up at night is worrying about how are they going to have jobs, or how are they going to really pursue games in a serious way. There's a gap between people that are already working, making games, finding career paths in that, and all these people that are studying it. And the exciting thing is that it's not just white dudes anymore. The challenge is finding them that path in, and I think that's one of the big challenges, and maybe a challenge that's quite close to my position, given that I do employ people. So it's a thing that I want to try solve.
Awesome. Thank you, Evan. Ben, do you have 30 seconds? Your mic is off.
So yeah, super quickly, I mean, this is like a huge question, and to try sum it up succinctly is really hard. There are an awful lot of challenges and like very severe systemic issues that are also making game development inaccessible to a lot of people in South Africa. So a whole lot needs to change, but I think for each person is individually able to help shape and grow the kind of community that they want to be part of. And I'd really just hope to see more of that in the future, is just people encouraging new people to come through to jams, people encouraging new people to start making games, and to practice the resourcefulness that South Africans have for finding ways around difficult challenges. I really think that's going to be the answer for like the next generation of South African game development is people finding their own way to make things work, and while welcoming and being appreciative of any like external support that comes in, really finding like South African solutions to our problems, and just empowering people to be able to like make stuff happen for themselves. And I think that's just going to kind of change the shape of the industry in coming years, and change an event like Playtopia as well, in terms of the people that are a part of it and making it as rad as it can be.
Awesome, thank you. Crystal, do you have a succinct last few notes on the topic?
Yeah. I think I buried the lead in all my other answers, so you can probably pick up the gist of it from there. But I think that what Evan said, there is now a next generation of people coming, and they have mentors, which is super exciting. I'm so excited that there are courses at university, people are taking them, and just communicating that the realities of making a living out of games, but without putting people off it, and also just giving people the space to be creative sensibly, at the same time. And I think that I'm seeing more people that look like me in the game scene, and that's over like 4 years that I've been following it, and that's kind of what you need. Growing up in a place where race was systematically drilled into you, like I grew up thinking, oh, this is something for white people, that's not for me, and having to unlearn all of that and realize I can do whatever the hell I want, because I can, these things are accessible to me. The more people I see that look like me, the more I think, okay, let me have a go at this. And I think that's pretty exciting that's going on. And people like Evan, Ben, Sithe, Anja, everybody's doing something in their capacity to just rope people in and share the knowledge. I think knowledge sharing is a big part of it.
Yeah, I think that's like sort of like handing over the torch, right? And just making
Mm-hmm.
sure that people are able to take it, that they're not sort of left out in the cold, or there are too many gatekeepers that are keeping them away from participation. Cool. Thank you guys so much for being part of our panel. Thank you very much to A MAZE for having us. We're excited to represent the South African massive, Southern African massive. Cool. Thanks, dudes.
Thank you, everyone.
Afternoon.
This was so rad. And thanks, A MAZE.
Thank you.
Cool, and
Thank
thanks everyone
you.
for watching.